Failure and setback. What a great topic. I've failed a lot. I'd like to tell you about some of my failures and some of the things that I've learned from them. A couple of different failures came up for me when I was sort of game planning this episode. One of them was from high school. So when I was in high school, I was captain of the tennis team, and I was playing my last match ever. And it was a super important match. It determined, I think, if we got to go to the playoffs or something like that. Maybe not the playoffs. We were never quite that good, but it was a very important match. And I was like neck and neck with this guy throughout the whole game. And we were at deuce, and then it was advantage out, and it was like the match-defining point. And I hit a ball back to him, and he called it out. And if you're not aware, in tennis, there's no like referees, right? So it's up to the players to call balls in or out. And he called it out, and I saw it hit, and it very clearly hit in. So he called it incorrectly. And then after he miscalled it, he started immediately celebrating, going, "Oh my God, I can't believe I won!" And I didn't say, "Hey, that's the wrong call. That ball was in." I didn't argue it at all. And I thought that was really interesting. So I lost the game and I didn't lose it fairly. And I'm considering that a failure, right? Because I lost the game, but I'm also considering it a failure because I kind of lost in a dishonorable way. So that's one failure. Another failure that comes to mind for me, I had a little business that I did when I was in high school, where I went to all the neighborhood houses. This was actually maybe even middle school, or maybe it was like very early high school. And I was too young to get a job. Maybe I was like 13. So yeah, it was like late middle school, early high school. And I was too young to get a regular job. So I printed out a flyer that said, "Hi, my name's Ryan. I can do stuff. I can mow your lawn. I can sweep your garage. I can clean out your attic. I can paint your shed. Please hire me." And a couple of people called, and one guy hired me to work with him pretty often. His name was Rick. And I worked with Rick for, I don't know, about a year maybe. And it was really great. He had this sort of side business that he did refurbishing phones, and he would have me clean them and reprogram them. And I had a final job that I did with Rick where he was building a house up north, and he had these metal support beams that he wanted me to paint. And I'd never painted metal. I wasn't really familiar with how to do it, but I didn't ask for help. He just gave me the paint and a paintbrush and said, "Here you go." So I painted them, and the paint, looked really bad when I was done with it. It, like the brush strokes were really obvious. It was really kind of streaky. And when he came back and I showed him my finished work, he said, "This looks terrible. You did a bad job." And I felt all embarrassed that I didn't ask him how to do it. He was pretty frustrated because now he was going to have to redo it. And he didn't officially fire me, but that was the last job he ever hired me for. And that was kind of a crappy way to end that relationship, to be honest. And I think I offered to fix it, but he was like, "Well, the amount of time it takes me to teach you how to fix it, it's just worth me fixing it on my own." And so I felt a little embarrassed, felt kind of crappy, and I didn't work with him again. Then there's one final failure that comes to mind for me. I had a couple of different business ideas when I was growing up. One of them was website hosting. I think one of the things that appealed to me about website hosting is it seemed like an easy way to make money, right? Get rich quick. I just gotta let people, people will hire me to host their websites, and I'll just make $20 a month from them for the rest of my life with no effort. And I consider that to be a failure because I came up with the name. It was E-Tree Technical Services. I think I may have even filed the LLC. I had a little website set up, but I never made a business plan. So I literally got no customers because I had no idea how to do anything. I had no implementation. I had no structure. And It just never went anywhere. I just filed, and then nothing happened. And it's kind of funny, that I just hoped that the business would get started. But hope is not a good business plan. So anyways, I have some lessons that I've learned from those failures, and one of the biggest things that I learned is the value of failure itself, which is really the lesson for today's video. So welcome to the channel. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ryan Weiss. This is the Ryan Weiss Show. I'm doing a video series here called Lessons for My Kids, where I'm recording lessons that I think are very important for my kids to learn by the time they turn 18. And I'm recording these videos so that if something were to happen to me, they can still learn these lessons from their dad. And I'm publishing them because I think that they might be valuable for other people too. Today's lesson is on failure and setbacks. And some of the main takeaways that I'd like to leave you with are that, number one, failure is a normal part of living, and it's a normal part of having goals and trying to do things in your life. It's just a part of the process. And in fact, it's actually a very good thing. If you're going for things that matter, right, then failure is guaranteed. The only way to avoid failure is to avoid trying to do anything of any substance, right? And if you avoid trying to do anything of any substance, that's actually the biggest failure you can have in your life, I think. The thing that's wonderful about failure is that every failure comes with a gift, and the gift is the lesson that you learn from the failure, right? So your job is not to avoid failing, it's to learn the lesson that the failure brings with it. And that can be tough. The other thing that you want to keep in mind too is, failure usually comes with some kind of consequence. And sometimes those consequences can be pretty substantial. If you lose a source of income, or if you lose a critical relationship, those failures can really hurt. But sometimes the failures that hurt the most are the ones that really teach you the most. And finally, I would encourage you to view failure as a signpost that you are headed in the right direction. In fact, one of the things that I found a little frustrating when I was preparing for this video was that I didn't have more significant failures I could immediately reference. And I'm actually taking that as a sign that maybe I'm not going for enough in my life, right? I think that the more you are failing, the more substantial of a life you're trying to live. And if you don't have a lot of failures you can point to, that probably means you aren't trying enough things. So keep that in mind too. Think back and think, can I highlight, my top 10 failures? And if you can't, maybe you need to start going for more substantial things. So going back to those 3 initial failures that I talked about at the start of this video, I'd love to just present the lessons that I learned from them briefly, because the lessons that I learned there are lessons that I still have, that I've been able to take and apply to my life today. So the lesson that I learned from the tennis match, it's a lesson that I've had to learn a couple of times actually, and I just recently had to relearn it again, which is there's an aspect of my character personally that is, without being too judgmental, a little cowardly and a bit over agreeable. Right? So sometimes, in order to avoid conflict with other people, I will suppress my own needs, wants, preferences. And this part of my character has served me and kept me safe at some parts of my life. But in other parts, it has really not served me. In fact, it's either harmed me or set me back. And I would consider this tennis tournament to be an example of that. I knew that ball was in. I should have challenged that call. I don't know why I did. I kind of shied away from the potential conflict. I didn't want to get into an argument. Maybe I felt like I couldn't trust myself to be 100% sure, but I was pretty sure. And so the lesson that I've taken away from that is, now I know this about myself. I know that when I'm facing a potential conflict, and by conflict I mean when my needs and preferences sort of abut with someone else's needs and preferences, that I have this inclination to like degrade my own needs and wants, and now I get to be conscious of it moving forward. And so when potential conflicts arise, I ask myself, am I being overly agreeable here? Am I discounting my needs, wants, preferences? And then I get to have a choice, right? And more awareness around whether or not I want to do that. The lesson that I learned from messing up my customer's metal support beam is that if you aren't sure about how to do something, it's okay to ask for help. And what I should have done there is I should have said, hey Rick, I'm not exactly sure how to do this. Can you give me some tips? And he would have been happy to. And if he did, I wouldn't have messed it up. But instead I didn't ask for help. I just tried to do it anyways. I messed it up. And then I had a real consequence, which was not getting to work with him again. And so there's typically very little cost to asking for help. Sometimes it feels like asking for help feels like this like monumental ask. It's like, oh, it's so costly. Ooh, you're asking for help? Really? You don't just know how to do this? But very rarely is that the case. I think most of the time it's an ego thing, right? Like I want to look like the kind of person who would know how to do this, and I don't want to expose that I don't know everything, which is stupid because of course I don't know everything. So the lesson that I took from there that I still try to apply today is asking for help. It's okay to ask for help. I often ask for help. Thankfully, there's so many tools now like AI that provide help whenever you want it. But ask for help. If you don't know how to do something, ask for help, ask for guidance. And then finally, the lesson that the third failure that I shared, which was my website hosting business that never went anywhere, the lesson that I took from that is you need to plan. It's an obvious lesson now as an adult, right? But if you don't create a plan and then apply that plan, of course it's not going to go anywhere. If you just set an intention but then never develop any steps to make that intention a reality, or never develop any processes to make that intention a reality, it's not just going to happen on its own. And I'm really grateful I got to learn that lesson as a kid, because I feel like a lot of people don't really get to learn that lesson until they're an adult. So those are my failures. Those are the lessons that I took from them. I'm really grateful for those failures because of the lessons that they taught me. And really, each of those failures has taught me a lesson that has helped me to not make those same mistakes again in the future. Some additional points that I want to share. The people who win the most in life are typically the people who fail the most. Those two things are correlated. So if you think, oh, I really want to have a successful life, you better prepare for a lot of setbacks and a lot of failures, because those are what it takes to get to that level. Some sort of cliche examples, but I'll share them anyways. Thomas Edison and the light bulb. His biographer, Frank Dyer, said that Edison tested thousands of unsuccessful light bulbs, and he treated them not as failures, but as eliminated possibilities. Isn't that interesting? It's not that I failed to create the light bulb, but it's that I eliminated this possibility. James Dyson of Dyson Vacuums, he built over 5,127 prototypes of his vacuum over roughly 15 years before he found the one that perfected and worked. But he viewed every one of those 5,126 failures as a step towards perfecting his vacuum. I recommend exploring how you frame failure to yourself. So there's two things to keep in mind here. Number one is having an explanatory style, right? So when you face a failure or a setback, there are two ways that you can frame it to yourself, right? You can frame it as permanent and personal, or you can frame it as temporary and specific. So when I experienced any of the three failures that I told you previously, a permanent and personal framing would have said, like, when I mispainted those railings or those metal support beams, I could have said, "Ah, man, I suck at painting. I always mess things up. This is all my fault, and I always let people down." Right? Those are thoughts that I could have had, and I would have had evidence to say that they were true. But instead, if I was temporary and specific, which is what I think I was, I said, I messed up painting these metal railings because I didn't ask for help. Next time now I know to ask for help, so I won't make this mistake again. Right? So consider, when you face a failure, try to avoid making it permanent and personal, and try to focus on making it temporary and specific. Some final tips. The practical move when you're facing a failure, right? So you have just experienced a failure or setback. Here's what I recommend that you do. Number one is to feel it, right? Don't pretend that it didn't hurt, and don't try to suppress your emotions. Feel the consequence and feel that it sucks, and that's okay. And give yourself sort of room to go through whatever process you need to go through, whether that's a little bit of grieving, a little bit of embarrassment, some frustration. Don't try to rush that. Feel that and experience that if that's what you're going through. Then ask the question, what are the learning opportunities from this failure? Right? And then finally, I recommend writing those lessons down in some place where you reflect. I recommend keeping a journal, writing down the lesson from the failure, and then move into next action. Okay, I experienced this failure, feel the failure, what do I get to learn, and then what's next? And then move into whatever your next action should be in whatever category you just failed in. And that brings us to the end of the lesson on failure and setback. I hope that information was helpful. This is what I've learned about failure and setback. I hope that I fail more and in more significant and spectacular ways in my life. And the more significant and spectacular failures that I experience, I know that I'll be heading towards significant and spectacular success. And I hope that you fail, and I hope that your failures don't destroy you, but rather allow you to grow more into the person that you're meant to be. So, this is Ryan Weiss with The Ryan Weiss Show, signing out. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks for watching.